Für First Graphene ist das Geschäftsjahr 2022 ein großer Erfolg. Das lässt sich schon jetzt sagen, obwohl das laufende Geschäftsjahr, was nicht mit dem Kalenderjahr übereinstimmt, noch nicht abgeschlossen ist. Doch die vorliegenden Ergebnisse zum ersten Quartal 2022 mit einem Umsatz von 179.000 australischen Dollar machen deutlich, dass 2022 besser wird als 2021. Denn schon zum 31. März wurden die Ergebnisse des Vorjahres übertroffen. Daneben konnte First Graphene den Abschluss neuer, wegweisender Kooperationsvereinbarungen vermelden. Und zusätzlich wird Mike Bell, der CEO von First Graphene, Ende Juni in Deutschland sein und eine Roadshow veranstalten. Interessierte Anleger sollten sich unbedingt in unserem Newsletter anmelden, um solche Einladungen immer direkt zu erhalten. Wer die E-Mail jetzt nicht erhalten hat, kann sich gerne in den Kommentaren oder unter roadshow@axino.com bei uns melden. Das alles schreit förmlich nach einem Interview mit Mike Bell und daher haben wir uns zu einem Gespräch verabredet. Eine Vorstellung von First Graphene und Mike Bell haben wir dieses Mal übersprungen. Diese findet ihr in dem verlinkten Video bereits. Zuallererst habe ich Mike auf das erfolgreiche Geschäftsjahr angesprochen und wollte eben wissen, wie First Graphene es geschafft hat, den Umsatz im ersten Quartal um 300% im Vergleich zum Vorjahr zu steigern.
The last sort of 6 months has really been trying to get traction from what we have learned and what our commercial managers have been able to do in our segments and getting applications developed. Most people know that developing an application with graphene takes time. We are talking anywhere between 6 and 18 months, possibly even 2 years in some cases, but they've all made good progress. And what that means for revenue is that as of the end of Q3, as we announced in our quarterly, we had already surpassed financial year 21's revenue. So that was about 360,000. Which is, a good movement forward. It's showing that we are getting traction in our respective segments. And not only did we do a good revenue figure, but we've also then been able to forecast and comment on significant orders coming in the fourth quarter. And so we're projecting we've received firm orders for about 200K in that last quarter of this financial year. And so what that means is we're chasing that 100% revenue growth from last year. And that's looking very positive at this stage. We still have more orders to come in. We're down to the last month of the financial year. It's progressing well, and we're keen to hit that 100% revenue growth and continue that trend from here.
Es wurde also in der Firma viel gelernt, die neuen Vertriebsmitarbeiter konnten sich einbringen und die gesamte Firma konnte sich weiterentwickeln, um diese Ergebnisse erzielen zu können. Nun ist aber meine Frage auch gewesen, ob First Graphene auch wiederkehrende Kunden hat oder ob jedes Paket Graphen aufwendig an neue Kunden verkauft werden muss.
A lot of the revenue that has come in the first 2 quarters of this year, even into the third quarter, were around our existing customers in the composites and rubber space. And so they, in that third sort of quarter, they contributed about half of the revenue generated within the quarter. What's changing now is that the breakdown of those revenue sources is diversifying across our material segments. So when we look into the last quarter of this year, yes, we still have that composites revenue stream, but we also have cement concrete. And this is the first time we've been able to say we're having significant revenue from that core focused segment. And so that's exciting. We've also got revenue coming from our coatings and inks and rubbers and elastins segments. So that's really starting to show that we're getting traction across all the segments, and as expected, the larger majority of it is coming from the cement and concrete opportunity.
Mike berichtet also, dass es durchaus wiederkehrende Kunden gibt, aber bei einem Umsatzanstieg von mehr als 300% natürlich auch Neukunden nötig waren. Insgesamt senden die Kunden aber gute Signale, wenn die Bestellungen wiederkehrend sind. Aber nicht nur der Kundenstamm wurde vergrößert, sondern auch die Kooperationspartnerschaften ausgeweitet. Unter anderem wurde eine Partnerschaft mit dem auf dem US-Markt agierenden Unternehmen Neograph abgeschlossen, welches zwar selber Graphenproduzent ist und eigene Produkte herstellt, sich aber trotzdem dafür entschieden hat, das Produkt von First Graphene zu verkaufen, da es in einigen Punkten besser als das hauseigene Produkt ist. Ich wollte von Mike einmal wissen, was das für ihn und die Firma bedeutet und wie die Einführung auf dem US-Markt läuft.
All graphene is not graphene. There is a serious sort of misconception about what constitutes graphene. We typically look at it and say our graphene nanoplates are between 5 and 8 atoms thick, and then various platelet sizes. A lot of people are marketing micronized graphite as graphene, and that performs in a very, very different manner. So we sort of hand on heart are very proud of the fact that our graphene is by definition graphene and it performs different than micronized graphite. Yes, we have signed a technology partnership with NeoGraph. As most people will know, cracking the US market is very difficult if you're a Western Australia company with no boots on the ground in America. Having been through that expansion into America process before, it's very clear that we needed assistance and partners and the right partners. We were approached by NeoGraph once they had tested our material and were confident that it was in fact graphene, that it had some great attributes, that we had a repetitive quality product, and they wanted to supplement their existing graphene products, which they had, with a broader range. And we had some really productive discussions and saw that there was mutual benefit for them to market our product under their brand and really help us penetrate into the US market. So they have an exclusive arrangement within the US. So they push our products out, branded under their own GraphX brand. And so it really sort of maximizes opportunities, both new clients, new applications, but also existing applications and how we make products better using graphene.
Die aktuelle Investorenpräsentation von First Graphene gibt Aufschluss darüber, dass sich die Firma auf den Betonmarkt konzentrieren wird. Dazu habe ich Mike ebenfalls mal angesprochen.
I've said this a few times now. When I first joined First Graphene about 18 months ago, somebody had said to me that graphene makes everything better. And that is essentially correct. It does make the properties of various materials a lot better. But there was never really an application where it was king. There was no killer application for graphene where there was no comparable material. And I think, having looked at this now for 18 months, I think the cement and concrete space is that killer application. For many years, people knew through academia that graphene would make concrete stronger. It was a process of getting it into the concrete was always sort of fraught with, challenges to get it evenly dispersed and to consistently get results. But so for 12 months or so, we had been trying to push that into the concrete space. Once we got our industry expert, Todd McGurgan, on board, he really sort of re-educated us about how you get materials into concrete. And we've found ourselves all the way back up the value chain, inserting graphene as a liquid grinding aid in the manufacture of clinker. And ultimately, yes, it does consistently make cement and then concrete stronger. But what it also means is that you can reduce the amount of clinker, which is the active product in cement. You can reduce that by 20% and have the same amount or the same strength concrete end product. It means you remove the amount of CO2 emissions that comes from that concrete.
Also, der Einsatz von Graphen kann die CO2-Emissionen in der Betonherstellung um 20% reduzieren. Das ist sehr gut, denn die Beton- und Zementindustrie produziert ca. 8% der weltweiten CO2-Emissionen. Zudem spielt es First Graphene in die Karten, dass die Industrie sich dazu verpflichtet hat, bis 2030 die CO2-Belastung um 25% zu reduzieren. Auch gut ist, dass die Investitionsausgaben für die Industrie quasi bei Null liegen. Das sollte First Graphene doch ebenfalls im Verkaufsprozess unterstützen und das Ganze etwas einfacher gestalten, oder?
Look, I think it's, everybody knows that when graphene was first discovered, there was a lot of hype around it. The theory behind it was exciting. The reality is that getting it into commercial products or industrial products takes time, and it takes longer than what people had expected. And, when you're trying to, if we take cement and concrete, for example, the basic chemistry of concrete hasn't really changed for 50, 100 years nearly. And so when you come along and say, well, I want you to use 20% less of your active ingredient that you know so well and you've relied on for 50 to 100 years, I want you to change that now. That takes education. And luckily with the cement and concrete industry, they are really motivated to reduce emissions now, so they are more receptive to the idea of it, but it still takes a huge amount of education. As we've announced before, we are progressing a funded, or an Innovate UK grant-funded program with Breeden Group, which is the largest cement and concrete producer in the UK, to develop their next generation green cement. So we're doing that in conjunction with a few other parties, but that program will essentially be the largest industrial scale program of graphene and concrete that we're aware of to date. So it's a massive achievement. We already have, the results of that and how it's going to perform is already known. So we don't really refer to it as a trial. It is a program, a commercial industry scale program for graphene in cement that will then in turn grow into be put into concrete. And our intent is there to really get into the UK infrastructure market, where we can say we've got a commercial concrete available in industry or commercial tonnage that has 20% less emissions, is a really strong attribute for infrastructure programs.
Zu guter Letzt hat Mike uns noch erzählt, was die Aktionäre auf der Roadshow erwarten können.
This roadshow is more about education around the cement and concrete segment. So explaining to people why we're focusing on that. You'll know that we released an investor presentation recently that goes through our sort of focus point, our core applications, but a lot of it is focused on the education, why cement and concrete and why we're doing that. So the roadshow is about telling that story, telling people through the numbers and educating people on the problem of CO2 emissions from concrete and how we have such an elegant solution to that problem. So that's the main point of the roadshow. This is not we're not going out capital raising at this time. We are sort of well funded at this stage, but education always aids that process. And that's the main point of the Roadshow.
Ich freue mich darauf, wieder einige von euch auf der Roadshow persönlich zu sehen und kennenlernen zu können. Meldet euch gerne an, die Plätze sind wieder limitiert. Weitere Fragen an Mike könnt ihr gerne in den Kommentaren loswerden. Wir sehen uns im nächsten Video. Vergesst nicht, ein Abo dazulassen und bis bald.